Hey guys, this week Scarlet gained a level. She killed the infamous painting beast that used to hang on my wall. We're also talking about what role-playing is and how to start doing it. So let's get the ball rolling. Alright guys, Chris here with Drop Dice. So my finals started last week. They're going well so far for anybody who's interested, and they will continue into the next week. Unfortunately, I'm a little behind on my YouTube content. I have been keeping up with the Facebook groups, but no topic has really jumped out at me. So what I decided to do was tackle a topic that came out last week in the Dungeon Masters Tavern, which there will be another one tomorrow as well. If you are interested in participating or sending us questions or anything like that, go ahead and find us at the Tabletop One-Shot group. It is in the events section for tomorrow for that event. All right, guys. So let's talk about it. So last week I was asked inside there, how would you encourage players to start role-playing? So this video is going to be geared more towards the player aspect as me kind of giving you advice as starting to role-play, but it also holds value on what you can do as a GM to encourage role-playing. So my first point here is to get a foundation. To get a foundation, the first step is to know who your character is mechanically. So when you play a game, and let's say they tell you to start at level 1, you should know everything that your character can do at level 1, plus start to understand what your character can do at level 2. If it's level 6, same thing, everything your character can do up to level 6, and know, or at least start to understand, what you can do at level 7. That'll give you a good, strong idea of who you are, what you can do, and that will encourage you to be able to roleplay because you won't be spending time in books. The other two things that I have for this are basically along the same lines. Understand your game's basic system, how combat is handled, how social situations are handled, and then understand how your house rules work. If you don't have social situations because you happen to be using a house rule where everything is role-played, understand that. Because that's going to help you. The other thing that you can do is understand those optional rules or rules that don't come up as often. If you want to play a grappler, you should look at the grappling rules. If you want to shield bash people, in 5th edition they have shoving. You should understand how shoving works. That way when your feat triggers the ability for you to shove as a bonus action, you understand how that shove is going to work. So that's kind of the general start of it. Have that foundation in place. Point number 2 is to start small. Pick something on your character that you can explore that is specific to your character. So a good place to look is trinkets, abilities, and your background. So your background will give you kind of a guidance. They call it a bond. That's kind of what your character's out there to accomplish in the world. That may not be 100% for your character. The backgrounds are designed as kind of a starting point to write a legitimate background for your character and give you a couple skills that make sense with what your background is. So, for example, let's say you get the trinkets and you happen to have a dead fairy in a jar, which is a weird one I've had before. You may be curious what's going on with this fairy, and it may be even more curious if you never see a fairy in your game world. Why do you have a dead fairy in a jar? Which that may take longer to show itself in your game world, but if you happen to have this dead fairy in a jar, and there are no other fairies in the world, but people have no idea what this jar is, what's inside of it, they're like, oh, it sounds like a fairy, but it's folklore for them what a fairy is. That could be an interesting aspect for you to explore. If you're a wizard, exploring more magic, learning more things, that's kind of tropey, but that's built into your class. If you're a fighter, maybe it's you know, you take from like the anime aspect and you want to challenge other fighters and you want to see whose fighting style is best. Again, kind of a tropey aspect, but it is something to explore that you can have a lot of fun with. Another thing that you can do is take a look at something that would be a little bit more personal to your character. SR2 Joker had a video where his background gave him a game set in 5th edition, and he decided to have a shogi set. And shogi is basically like Japanese chess, And what he did is he was playing a Battle Master fighter, and he would equivalate his RP towards playing shogi. So essentially, he would describe what he's doing, and then he would describe what his character was thinking, like pushing a piece towards the other emperor, that sort of thing, which you can definitely use to kind of further that RP value. You see it a lot in books where people will have like a treasured item, and that may be kind of what you're going for. My tip number 3 is RP combat. Combat for me is the easiest thing to insert RP, and I think that's because we live in such a mass media type society that it's very easy to find videos on how to do combat, or like street fighting videos if you want to go for that sort of thing. You can pull up like 80 martial arts movies within 2 seconds on Netflix. You can find that stuff on Hulu, online, all sorts of stuff. Regular TV shows on TV. It shouldn't be hard for you. So, you know, and when you're RPing the combat, feel free to use the environment. Some players haven't gotten to that point where they're capable to use the environment, or maybe players have just kind of forgotten about it. If I put my character, let's call him Baldre, who's a knife fighter who is a barroom brawler because he's got that feat, and he likes to grapple people and stuff like that. Let's say we're starting with early levels Baldre, and he's just got ballroom brawler for now. He happens to get in a fight in the tavern. What I may consider doing is there's an archer on the other end of the room that's attacking me, and there's a fighter in front of me. I may want to throw the bottle at the archer and stab the melee attacker. For this narrative purpose, we'll say that the archer is an elf and the melee attacker is an orc with a stool. So instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to throw the bottle at the guy in the back and I'm going to stab the guy in front of me, which is very fast and it may be appropriate for fights that don't matter, but let's say this fight does matter. It's our first level and we're kind of getting in the swing of things, and this happens to be like the challenge of the day because at first level it's hard to give you guys things that won't kill you. So Baldre is standing behind the counter. There's a couple ways I can do this. I can narrate from the third person and say Baldre picks up the bottle and hurls it at the archer and then attacks with his knife, which that little bit is RPing. It does sound like you're just kind of describing your attacks, but because you're doing it in the third person, it is a step towards RPing. So if you're already doing that, congratulations, you're already on the path. The other thing that you can look at is narrating from the first person. So now I'm going to use I statements. The GM tells me it's my turn. I go, okay. I quickly glance across the bar, finding an empty whiskey bottle. With a slight crooked smile, I pick it up and hurl it across the room to the elf bastard. My smile extends slightly further as I reach across with a brutal lunge towards the orc's throat with my knife. Now, if you notice, I haven't made contact with either target. The reason for that is because when you're describing your actions through roleplay, you shouldn't finalize anything when a dice roll is the deciding factor. So for this scene, what I would do is drop dice on the one in the back, and then I would drop dice on the one that's in front of me. And let's say for this scene, the one that's in front of me, the melee fighter, I just don't nail it. He gets away from my attack. But the guy in the back, my bottle hits him. I'll go ahead and roll damage for the GM. But how I'm going to describe my action is I'm going to pick up where my dice tell me to. So I have a success on the ranged fighter and a failure on the melee fighter. So I would describe it like this, in first person again. As my knife comes clear to his throat, the orc leans back, and with a mighty howl, he swings and deflects my blade. Now, depending on your GM, you might want to be careful about your RP. Your GM may take the fact that your blade was deflected and say, oh, it's hurled across the room. If you happen to be that GM, I don't recommend being that GM anymore because it is not fun for players and it does not encourage roleplay if you punish them for their roleplay. If it happens to be a game like Dungeon World, and let's say I missed him by a little bit, and it's success with a cost, and you say, okay, I'm going to let you lunge forward, you can do damage, but he's going to disarm you, that's one thing, because it's been agreed upon with the player and the GM. Don't just straight take away his stuff because he chose to roleplay it and say it a certain way in his roleplay. When I say deflect, I'm just saying to the side. So, as I lunge for his neck, the orc lets out a howl and deflects my blade with his stool, exposing me. My smile turns to anger as I hear the bottle crack against the elf's skull with a deadening thunk. That kind of description lets people know that I hit the ranger in the back, or the archer in the back, and I missed the orc in front of me. And that's definitely the way that you want to go with your descriptions, is describe up to the point of action, decide the dice rolls, and then describe from that point afterward. If you get in the habit of using that formula, you're going to notice that your RP is going to naturally improve as you go along. So for me, our combat just happens to be very easy once you understand that formula. The last tip I have for you here is find something in the world to explore. So we suggested that you find something internally to your character to explore, which was like the trinket, your class feature, etc. The next part is to explore the world. Think about where your character fits in the world and what the world is like. If you happen to go around being a murder hobo, understand that there is some RP value in that. Why are you that way? If you happen to be going around with a purpose, what is giving you that purpose? What are you seeking out in the world? What are you trying to accomplish? It may be as simple as you're trying to get some money. Well, why are you trying to get some money? I have a sick relative. Okay, what's your relative's name? Exploring these kinds of questions will develop a more full background and give you more to play with in game. So now, I'm going around the world, diving into tombs because I need money, because I have a sick relative that has this disease that it costs a certain amount of gold every week to maintain her health. Let's say it's a little sister, because tearjerker moment. So let's say Baldre has this little sister that he cares deeply for, and he has to ensure that she has 10 gold a week to maintain the medicine that she needs to stay alive. That for a commoner is a lot of money. So it makes sense that Baldre became an adventurer, because sure, he may not get paid all the time, but if he gets a payout of 100 gold, that's 10 weeks of medicine. And in that 10 weeks, he can try and find another job and get another payout of like 200 gold maybe this time, so that he can kind of build up this bank so that his sister can be safe. And the cool thing about that is let's say, he is running low on money. That gives the RP moments of, being scared for your sister's life and that sort of thing. Another thing I'd like to draw your guys' attention to, I am going to do an update. If you happen to be doing Savage Worlds, there is a blog post that I did that talked about making the camp scene more important. I'm going to update that to 5th edition version of those rules to make the camp scene a little bit more important. Savage Worlds has a great rule inside there called Interlude, which basically they have a system like Inspiration called Bennies. And during an interlude, you can talk about your character's background and role play this moment where you're kind of sharing with the group. You see this in movies a lot and plays, which is why I like it. And so let's say, you do your campfire scene and you allow players to take the option of, let's say, one of them wants to do an interlude. So now Baldre is talking about his sister with the group, and the group now knows why Baldre is the way he is, that maybe he's so aggressive because he feels like there's nothing he can do to save his sister. Short of finding a wish spell. And maybe that's the real reason he's adventuring is, yeah, the medicine is good and all, but he needs a cure. So that does give you another level of who this person is. So I would definitely check that out. There's some other rules inside there that go towards like quality of weapons. Like you could say that part of the campfire is set up to where you're tending to weapons. The idea of the hearth being so important. Some advanced healing stuff on there. Like I said, I'm going to write up something that's a little bit more definitive for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition that uses my hearth rules, which I used from somebody else's like 3.5 rules that I modified for Savage Worlds. So just keep in mind, we're in a postmodern age. Nothing you do will be entirely 100% original, and embrace that when it comes to that stuff. As far as updates goes, the world building series will be back Wednesday. I have built the world. I came up with a name and then found out that it was hideously close to Tolkien, so I'm changing the name. Right now, I've got it set with an idea of what it should be. Let me find it real quick here because I wrote it down, and then now, of course, I don't have it in front of me. Stratner is the name of the world currently. I'm letting people pick it apart and tell me if I've stolen from a published setting, like really close, like I did the first time. I was basically a letter off from what Tolkien had put together for Isengard. I had Isengard, and I don't want to be that close. I'm okay with being relatively close, but not super close. So Stratmer is the name that is tentatively working right now. I put up a bunch of a bunch of pictures on the blog about where it's at right now, some of the inspiration pictures for the races. This next week, what we're going to talk about is, I think global culture will probably be the topic. If I change my mind, we'll find out Wednesday. For everybody who's been paying attention to that series and this series, thanks a lot. I wanted to mention that on Tuesday, I will be doing an interview with GM Juce from Tabletop Gaming with Juce, which will be on his channel. I'm going to like it and have it included on my channel inside the liked videos section. So make sure you check that out. He's the guy who kind of facilitates the Tabletop One-Shot group. I've actually been friends with him for a while via Google and Google mainly. And I think for Facebook for a little while as well. When he started playing Savage Worlds, I gave him some pointers on Savage Worlds, and I've seen his videos for a long time. If you haven't seen his stuff, make sure you definitely check him out. He's kind of like me. He's more of a talk to you directly and maybe ramble a little kind of GM. So if you like my style, definitely check out his videos because he's very similar in style. He also happens to play in a game that's pretty popular online right now called Provokers. And if you want to learn more about role-playing, that's a good game to watch because there are some players inside there that started off with kind of these beginner skills, and you can see how they develop their own role-playing. And like I mentioned earlier, understanding and picking out people whose role-playing you like is a good way to improve your own role-playing because you'll aspire towards what they do. One other thing to mention kind of along those lines is if you are brand new to role-playing entirely, a good way to learn to role-play is talk to another player at the table and ask if you can make a character that ties in with their character. Like, let's say you make a fighter and a rogue that grew up together and they got themselves in a lot of fights and stuff like that. So you build a fighter who will complement the rogue who's, let's say, your new player. And that rogue is going to be an archer, let's say. That way they can take advantage of that sneak attack. So you're going to have a fighter who's going to take stuff like Sentinel so he can shut down people's movements and keep them at 5 foot so his rogue friend can go ahead and take his shots with Sniper or whatever his feats happen to be. And you can play up this like buddy cop movie style relationship with these two characters. And it's a very easy kind of trope to follow by doing something like that. So if you're brand new and you're intimidated by it entirely, pick out a person who you respect and ask them to be, their partner in crime, because it'll give you a role-playing mentor. If you happen to be with a mentor or a GM to somebody who is new to role-playing, give them positive feedback, tell them what you liked, tell them how they could improve things. Try not to step on their role-play because it is intimidating as a new player, especially if you are the one new player in the group to be there, to kind of come forward and actually do that, because it is kind of exposing the more creative side of you. So when the game is over, let's say I happen to be a new player in that Baldray scene, and you're like, oh man, hey, when you threw the bottle at that guy, that was pretty awesome. I liked how you described that. That little bit of encouragement will encourage them to do it some more. On the contrary, the other thing that I would like to recommend for people is this role-playing is a direct feedback to your GM about how he's doing. It does tell him what you're interested in, what you're not interested in. I would also recommend that GMs every once in a while at least do a session of roses and thorns. Basically, you take one positive quality and one negative quality that the campaign is doing so far and talk about it with the group. If your group happens to be good like my normal group, we just kind of discuss it. We don't have like an official roses and thorns. If that happens to be your style, that's awesome. Keep doing it that way. If not, you may want to consider doing, hey guys, we're going to try roses and thorns after this game. Basically, I want you to tell me what you like about this game or the campaign so far, and what you don't like about this game or the campaign so far. That way the players have a little bit of time inside their head to think about it. Or you may want to just introduce it to your players at the beginning and be like, hey, you guys can tell me at any point if you like or dislike something. And if you want to keep it private, you can email me or text me or whatever happens to be your medium of choice. All right, guys, this video has gone long enough. I will see everybody again Tuesday for the interview. And hopefully I will see a few more subscribers on the channel. It's always good seeing new faces. If you guys see anything in this video that you'd like to comment on, please like, comment, subscribe, of course. And if you do a video response, please include it inside the notes here so that I can actually give you some feedback on your own video, and we can kind of build each other's networks that way. All right, guys, thanks for coming, and I'll see you at the gaming table.